What's going on, beautiful internet family? My name is Dan Davis and I'm the creative director here at DansTube.TV, as well as the Fearless Drone Academy, which is the ultimate online drone course for beginners. And I'm very excited to do this test today. This is something that a lot of people have actually asked about in the comments of my previous video where I tested out the Mavic 3's latest Waypoint modes. So Waypoints are available officially through the DJI Fly app on both the Mavic 3 and the Mavic 3 Classic, but we also have Waypoints through Litchi, which is a third-party application that you can download on both iOS and Android. There's a few others out there as well. You can get DroneLink, as well as Maven. Maven only works on iOS at the moment, but it will soon be available on Android. In today's video though, I'm comparing the Air 2S's Litchi Waypoint mode and the Mavic 3's Waypoint mode, which is the official DJI Waypoint mode. Very keen to see how well both of them go. I was extremely impressed with the Mavic 3's performance when we tested the Waypoints, so I thought I was going to do 3 missions here. I'm going to plan them all at home while I'm talking you through them, and then I'm going to go out and test it properly. So that's the plan. Let me know in the comments below your experiences with both Litchi on your Air 2S as well as the Mavic 3 Waypoint modes. I'm going to try to do the best job I possibly can to test these out and to keep it as similar as possible. So right now I'm testing it on the Mavic 3. So I've gone into the map section. I've then got this waypoint section off to the left here. So I'm going to tap on that to enable the waypoint mode. Soon I'll be setting it up on the Air 2S. So first things first, do something that I tested last time, which is basically just a very simple waypoint mode around this little boathouse here. I just found that with Litchi, for example, when it turns corners, I find it can be a little bit more robotic, where I was very impressed with the Mavic 3's and Mavic 3 Classic's way of actually maneuvering around corners. It seemed to be a lot smoother and more stable. So I thought that was going to be my first test. Let's move this point down here. I'm going to make the first point where it starts recording, and I'm going to make the altitude 30 meters. So that's like the legal height. I'll try my hardest to get it. 30.8 is going to be good enough. Oh, I don't know why I made it there. I'm going to move it along this line here. Over here, we'll come across here and then back on itself and kind of finish up down here. So it's almost like an awkward U kind of shape. And I'm going to make the point of interest. So once I go back, click on point of interest, I'll make the point of interest the boathouse again, and we'll make the altitude of that 15 meters, because last time that seemed to do a really good job of going to keep it as close as possible. So 15.2 meters is what I'm going to go for here. That's looking pretty good. Now what I need to do is click on the first waypoint and make sure that it follows the point of interest. So we're going to set that up, go to point 2 and apply all the settings. Boom. You can see all of them now are looking over at the point of interest. So that's the first little example here. I'm just going to tweak a few more things. So point 6 is where it's going to stop recording. Waypoint 1, the altitude I need to apply to all. So now they're all at 30 meters, and then also going to go to point of interest and apply to all. So now you can see they're all 30 meters. If I zoom out, all 30 meters pointing at the point of interest, which is 15.2 meters. I'm going to try to do my best to replicate the same flight on the Air 2S using Litchi. So that's done now. I'm going to save that. That's all applied. So let's just save that one as test 1. Boom, save. So that's good. So that's saved now. We're happy with that one. Happy with that flight. And then for the next 2 flights, I'm going to try to do something a little different. So I'm going to get the drone to increase in altitude. So as it goes to each point, it's going to lift up slowly, and I'm also going to get it to move around. So it's going to be moving as well as lifting up. So again, that's going to be an interesting test, and we'll just kind of see how that goes. For test 2 here, I'm going to keep the point of interest as the little boathouse here. And again, I'm going to keep it at 15 meters because I know that that was a sweet spot. 15.8. Is I believe what we had last, or 15.2 maybe. Again, it's going to be hard because it's quite fiddly, but we'll keep it as close as possible. 15.5 is going to be fine. Happy with that, 15.5. And now for the waypoints, this is where I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So I'm going to set this as the first waypoint, then I'm going to go to this, then off to the side a little bit, and then, so there we go. So it's kind of like a little bit of a bend. Again, I'm going to make sure that the point of interest is the focus point. Oh, so instead of follow course, we're going to change it to point of interest, and then we're going to apply to all. So now all of them are looking over at that point of interest. But this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from 30 meters up to maybe 60 meters here. So we're gonna slowly progress and just see what happens. So we've got 30.2 for that one. This one we can make 35. Again, we're gonna try to keep it as close as possible on each test, and then it's gonna go to 45, and then this one's going to be 50. So we can now see, as I go back, it goes from 30 to 35 to 45 to 50. So it's in a bit of a U-bend. It's still focusing in on that point of interest, which is set to 15 meters, but the drone is going to be lifting up and also moving on a bit of an angle. So that's again going to be a very cool test. So we're going to save that one as test 2. Again, I'm going to try to replicate these on the Air 2S, and then I'm going to set one more test, and we are ready to go out and test this properly. For the final test here, I'm going to try to go a bit more in a straight line, and I'm going to try to focus in on the lighthouse at the end here. So that's going to be my point of interest. Again, I know it's relatively low, so we'll just set it at 15. That should keep it in that range. So we'll go 15.8. And then we're going to go to the waypoints, zoom out a little bit, because as you know, I'm going to be flying from down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it right along this area here, and I'll just literally tap to create a few. We might just go with 4 waypoints. So you can see it kind of goes in a little bit of a bend. I'll try to set this up as quickly as possible. So we'll start recording there. Oh, that's actually something I didn't do on mission 2, so I'll have to do that as well. So section 1 is where it starts recording. Section 5, stop recording. So we're happy with that. We're also going to make number 1 as the point of interest, is where it's focusing in on, and we will apply that. And now they're all looking at number 1 as the point of interest. And this time I'm going to come down. So I'm going to go from 50 and I'm going to slowly start coming down. So it's going to go to 45, do what we did before, 45, then it's going to go to 35, 35, got it bang on, even though it's saying 34. And then the final one is going to be 30. Again, trying to keep it as close as possible. It's going to be almost impossible to get it bang on, but there we go. Pretty happy with that. So it goes from 50 down to 30 through the 4 waypoints. Start recording, stop recording, and we can save that as test 3. And now we are ready to go with the Mavic 3. Now I'm going to be setting up those 3 waypoint missions through the Litchi application using the Air 2S. So there is a little bit of delay with the video feed, so hopefully that's not too off-putting, but I'm going to go to the same location again, and I'm going to try to set up an identical mission here, hopefully. So firstly, let's put down that point of interest, which is this guy here, and we will make the altitude 15 meters, similar to what we did with the last one. It's a lot easier to get it more precise through the Litchi application. So that's 15 meters there for that waypoint, or for that point of interest, sorry. And now I'm going to try to set the little U shape that I did. So from memory, it was like, if I tap off that, I can set my little mission here. So I can go 1 there, 1 there maybe. Again, it's going to be hard to get it exactly bang on the money. But from memory, it was like I did 6. So there we go, that's pretty similar there. Got the 6. We'll keep them all at 30 meters because that's what we did for the previous one. But what we'll do here is we'll make first one needs to capture the video. There we go. So start recording that point. If I click on point 1, it's going to start recording. If I go to waypoint 6, I'm going to make it so it stops recording. So now I've pretty much got that mission set up. It's 15 meters on the boathouse, and then it goes 30 meters for all the waypoints. And this is where I'm really going to see how well it's going to go going around the corner while it's just at the same height. So it doesn't have to go up, it doesn't have to increase in altitude as well as go around a corner. So we'll see how well that goes. That's going to be my first mission. So we're going to save that one, and we're going to call that one test 1. So when I click on the folder icon, you can now see I've got test 1. So if I load up test 1, it will show us that I've got a very similar mission to what I did on the Mavic 3. We will see how well this goes. Hopefully it does a good job here. So that's mission 1. Let's move on to setting up mission 2 now. We're back here for mission 2. So again, point of interest, smack bang on the little boathouse. Again, we're going to make it 15 meters because we know that that seems to be a sweet height. So we're going to do that, 15 meters, done. And then this is where I need to increase the altitude. So from memory, I had 4 points. I had 1 here, then I had 1 here, I guess, 1 here, and then one off to the side. So I feel like it was less of a drastic hook like that and more of a gradual hook. Again, it might not be the exact same shot, but it's going to be very similar here. So let's go between them. So we're going to start at waypoint 1 and we're going to make that the start recording. We're going to then go to waypoint 4, stop recording, and then this is where we need to adjust the different altitude here. So now that mission is all set up, it goes from 30 meters to 35 to 45 to 50 meters. It's focusing in on that point of interest. Again, it's going to be a very interesting test to see how well it goes going around a corner as well as increasing in altitude. And the other thing to mention is that both Waypoint planners have really intuitive interfaces, nice and easy to do. I can set up a mission extremely quickly and not too much brain power goes into setting up a Waypoint mission, regardless if you're using the Air 2S or the Mavic 3, they both do a great job. So if I load up my missions, you can now see I've got test 1 is set up ready to go, and then test 2 is also ready to go. So it's just a case of planning test 3 and we are ready to go out and actually properly test these on the field to see how well both the Mavic 3 performs with its new waypoints and the Air 2S performs with Litchi waypoints. So back into waypoints again, and this time we're going to set the lighthouse as our point of interest. So again, set it up there. Tap on the point of interest, make it 15 meters, which is the same as the last mission. Pretty happy with that. And from memory, again, I did 4 points here. So I did, from memory, I started like around here, went up to here, went across to here, and then I kind of went up the top here. Again, hopefully it's going to be very similar here, but we will have to wait and see. This time though, from memory, I went slightly differently here. So 35, and then that's going to be 45, and then it's going to start at 50. So it's going to be decreasing in altitude this time. So let me just set waypoint 1 as start recording, waypoint 4 as stop recording. So that's set up, and it goes from 50 meters to 45 meters to 35 to 30 meters. Again, it's focusing in on the point of interest at 15, and we will see how this one goes as well. All right, so this is the Mavic 3 test, testing out the 3 missions here. Okay, so now I've launched the Mavic 3 and I'm going to go into my waypoint section, load up test 1, which you can see is the same as what we planned at home. We're going to make the global speed just a little faster. So we're going to set it to 5 meters per second, 5.6 meters per second should be good. So let's go and let's see how well this goes. Just watching the drone launch into the sky. It's so cool to actually have like built-in waypoint missions on the Mavic 3. So what should happen here is it's going to go to waypoint 1 and it's going to start recording. It will be focusing in on the point of interest, which is 15 meters, and we're at 30 meters, so it's going to be angling the camera down a little bit to make sure that it's getting that in the focus point. You can see here that it's keeping it nicely in the center of frame. It's going at 6 meters per second, which I know a lot of people commented on the video saying, why aren't you using kilometers per hour? For some reason, even though I've got my settings in kilometers per hour, it's still displaying meters per second. So we'll just see how this mission goes. It's up to waypoint 2. You can see in the bottom left, it's just smoothly moving between the two. It is a little overcast today, so lighting conditions might change. But so far, as my first test with the Mavic 3, I'm very impressed. It's keeping it extremely smooth as it's going around a corner. And now this is going to be a cool test to see it kind of bank back the other way and see how it performs here. So I will say immediately off the bat, it just looks a lot smoother because it's built in, and it's like an inbuilt piece of software, I guess, from DJI as opposed to a third-party piece of software like Litchi. So far I can see it's extremely smooth, and my immediate thoughts are that Litchi might not perform as smoothly as this, but we'll have to wait and see. So far though, this looks phenomenal. It's doing a really great job like it did the other day, and it's going to get to 0.6. It's then going to stop recording.
Go home.
And I'm going to actually stop recording manually. It didn't seem to do it. But now we're going to move on to mission number 2 to see how well this one goes. So we'll set it up. I'll make it. We will get there. Let's go at 6.5 meters per second. We're now going to go with mission number 2, which is this mission here, where it slowly increases in altitude as it goes around a bend, still focusing in on that point of interest, which is at 15 meters. So we should see it start recording very soon. It has not, because I did not set that up in my mission, so I'm going to start recording now. It's going back, still keeping that point of interest, and it's slowly increasing in altitude. I can see it's doing a pretty good job so far. It's looking very smooth, not looking juttery or anything like that. We'll review the videos soon, and you'll see all of that on your end. It's very nice to see that boat coming in. Perfect timing, look at that, organized. So it's still climbing, going up to 50 meters as it's kind of going around the bend, doing its thing. So far, very, very impressive. It's looking extremely solid so far.
Go home.
So when we review these clips back, let's just have a quick look. You're also going to have like the full videos pop up in between. But from what I can see here as I'm playing it back, it looks extremely smooth, which I'm not surprised. It did an amazing job the other day when I tested this out. This was a very similar mission to what I did the other day, so again, not too surprised here. Keen to see how this one went as it's increasing in altitude. You can see it kind of has a little bit of a weird swinging movement, but then once it settles in, it does a great job of slowly increasing in altitude as it's going around bends nice and slowly. Perfect position of that boat coming in, and yeah, very impressed. I'm not surprised, but very impressed that it's looking extremely smooth and clean. So now let's move on to the third test and see how well that performs. So this one's at 5.8 meters per second. Let's start mission number 4. It's not too close to the starting point, so it's going to have to fly across to its starting position, which it's doing a great job of doing so far. So this time it started recording straight away. It did have a bit of that swinging motion again, but I can see it's settled down and it's starting to go around a bend as it's decreasing slowly in altitude, going from 50 meters down to 45. I can see on the bottom left there, it's doing a great job of keeping the track nice and smooth, making sure that it's staying on track, keeping everything focused, and that's looking very, very clean so far. It's now going to go from 45 down to 35 meters. So I'm keen to see how smooth this looks. But so far, flawless execution again, and it's looking like DJI might have created one of the best Waypoint features ever. Like, it's looking very impressive. I'm keen to see how Litchi performs, but so far this is looking great. So it's now going to 35 or 34 meters, and it's going to continue around as it's panning around the lighthouse here nice and smoothly. And then it's going to stop recording at 30 meters when it hits waypoint 4. And so far it's looking great. No issues with awkward movements. The speed's great. The movement of the drone is smooth, and yeah, it's looking very impressive so far.
Go home.
So it's now finished that mission and it's returning home. It's got the obnoxious beeping, so let's just stop that because I noticed that was in the previous video. Just going to punch it in sports mode and cruise it back to us. But before we get back to us, we are going to play that back and just see how well it went, really. Let's have a quick look here. So you can see straight when I start, it does have that awkward movement immediately, and then from this point on, it's nice and smooth, nice and centered, no awkward, jerky movements. And I was quite impressed as it got to this point here and it continued like panning around, like it almost went in like a circle, like a point of interest with the lighthouse. But again, this is all programmed. You saw me program it at home and it's looking extremely smooth. So far, top tier performance from the Mavic 3 using Waypoints. Let's now see how the Air 2S goes using the Litchi Waypoints. All right, so this is now using Litchi. So I'm going to make sure that everything is set up the way I want it to be set up. Okay, so for the cruising speed, we're gonna go with something similar to the other one. So 6 meters per second, and we are gonna start this mission and see how well Litchi performs using its Waypoint. So we're using very similar parameters, same kind of setup. I've tried to keep it a fair test. So this is gonna be the true test here to make sure that everything works nicely and everything's smooth. And this is where we're going to be able to see how well DJI have done with their Waypoints mode as opposed to a third-party application like Litchi. So you can see it's angling down at 15 meters. You can already see it's definitely not as smooth. It's got a little bit of that swaying motion. Still doing a pretty good job, but it's not really keeping it perfectly in the center. And you can see the swaying movement is a lot more pronounced with Litchi. It's still looking pretty smooth though, and it's following the waypoints as you would expect and doing a really great job of keeping on track. And some of this footage is really great. Like here, this section here is looking nice and smooth. But again, like I was expecting, the swaying movement's going to be a little bit more pronounced on Litchi as opposed to DJI developing it in-house and being able to get the smoothest movements possible. So still doing a great job as it's coming around, but again, like those movements just aren't as buttery smooth as the Mavic 3's waypoints. So as expected, it's looking like the third-party applications can't keep up with the in-house development of waypoints for the Mavic 3 and Mavic 3 Classic. We're going to keep going with this test though. We're going to load up test 2 because I actually do have limited battery on my phone. We're going to make the cruising control just a little slower this time, seeing if that makes any difference. We'll make it 5 meters per second, so that might make a bit of a difference. And or maybe I need to go with the max flight speed. Let's pull that one down. So we'll pull that down to 6, and maybe this will make a difference here. So let's start this mission. This is mission number 2 here, as it's increasing in altitude and still turning. So you might get a little bit of that awkward movement, but you're also going to get the drone increasing in altitude. So let's see how accurate this waypoint is. I'm sure it's still going to do a great job, but I'm thinking it's not going to be as good as the default on the Mavic 3. So you can see it's actually pretty smooth here as it's going back. I think since we've changed that flight speed, that might have made a difference here. We're going to change the flight speed again for test 3 just to make sure that that's not the thing that's getting in the way. I know that they can be a little bit fiddly when you go too fast on the third-party applications as it's going between waypoints. So this is actually looking extremely smooth, a lot better than that first one. So that might actually be the key here to capturing some nice steady waypoint missions. So there we go. That right there was test number 2. We're going to load up test number 3 now. Load that one and start the mission here just to see how we go. This is going to now be going from a 50 meter, yep, and it's going to be going down gradually until it hits 30 meters at the tip of the point, and that's where it's going to reveal the lighthouse. So with this one here, I might actually just quickly pause it as it gets to the location. And again, we're going to customize that flight speed because I believe that could be the factor that's getting us smoother footage on Litchi. So again, we're going to go with 5. I feel like 5's slow enough that it's getting some steady kind of shots for us. So 5 meters on both cruising speed and max flight speed. We're now going to start this mission and see how well it performs. So it started recording and it started on its path. Looking nice and steady at 5 meters per second. It's definitely a lot slower than the 8 meters per second, which I think will create some smoother movements. But you still do get a little bit of that swaying. And overall, I would say that the Mavic 3 has the better overall functionality when it comes to waypoints. It is, again, an inbuilt piece of software from DJI as opposed to third-party developers. So DJI have a lot more resources and a lot more money, I guess, to throw at something like a waypoint mode. But I'm still quite impressed here with Litchi. It's doing a great job as it's turning. It's keeping it relatively smooth, and this is still usable footage here. This is still very impressive. You can see that, again, it is bumping a little bit. It's kind of like a little robotic, a little juddery. Still usable footage, and the majority of it you can use, but you can just see that it is just a little more jumpy and a little more awkward than the Mavic 3's Waypoint mode. So overall, by the looks of it, the Mavic 3 Waypoint mode is significantly better in terms of usability, in terms of reliability, which is kind of expected. But as you can see, the Air 2S using Litchi's Waypoints is still a great alternative, and you can get some extremely smooth, versatile Waypoint missions planned and capture some smooth video footage. So reviewing these clips back, as expected, it is pretty impressive overall. You can see for this first video, it is a little bit more jumpy than the other videos, and that's because I had it at 8 meters per second as opposed to 5 meters per second. So that definitely makes a difference when it comes to the third-party applications. You really need to get that sweet spot, where I find with DJI's version of Waypoints, again, built in-house, a lot more reliable. I find that you can get away with all different speeds on that one. So we can see here that it does look pretty smooth, and a lot of this footage is usable. I am curious to see how well this second video goes, because this one definitely was a little smoother. Yep, this one looks nice and clean, nice and steady. And yeah, this is usable footage again for test number 2. So that's great to see. And then for test number 3, this is where it decreases in altitude as well as kind of goes around a bend. So as I was seeing in real time, it's definitely a lot more jerky, but the majority of the footage is usable. It's only really when it comes by the side here that the movements become a little bit more awkward, but overall they both do a fantastic job. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think that the Mavic 3 won this competition, this comparison, or did the Air 2S come out on top? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love your thoughts on both Litchi on the Air 2S and the Mavic 3 Waypoint mode that only just got released. Again, they both do a great job. In my opinion, the Mavic 3 has it here. It definitely is the winner, but still both very impressive and both extremely usable. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. I will chat to you in the next video, and peace out.
Pain all around, is it worth it? I can't touch the ground, is it hopeless? I'm still lost, don't know where I am. I wish I